What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Click Gaming's weekly podcast. I believe this is 7 or 8.
I put 8 on the first slide, so I hope it's 8.
8. Chance is smarter than me, so I let him handle the logistics.
Smarter. I always increment by 1. Whatever the last saved version is, I add 1. So if I ever forget to save, we're in trouble.
Well,
just fix it in post.
I'll fix it in post. Yeah,
fix it in post.
So you saw us last week, but anyways, I'm gonna start off talking a little bit about just esports on mobile, or maybe just video games in general on mobile. 100 Thieves just announced that they're going to have a Call of Duty Mobile Team. So mobile as in phone. The mobile version of the phone, not mobile as in traveling.
He's clarifying because I didn't know what mobile meant. I was like, did they go on tour? Like, what does mobile mean? It's like, no, a phone, moron. Got it.
He's good with numbers, guys. Anyways,
yeah,
so they just announced they're going to have a team dedicated for Warzone, Call of Duty Mobile, and then they just purchased their spot for the CDL. So exciting things happening for them revolving around Call of Duty. But it's interesting. I was reading up on COD Mobile, and their rules, like you can't use a controller. I mean, you can use a headset, but you got to use like an approved phone. And I thought it was kind of interesting, no controllers. But as you dig into it deeper, why not just play on Xbox or PS4 or PC if you're going to let them use a controller? Like, that's not that big of a difference. I mean, obviously your screen's smaller, but like the hard part about playing on mobile is you have to use your hands, and the phone is the controller. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Chance?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would think controllers might make sense, or some sort of partial controller, but also there's not really a great gaming controller for mobile that's super standardized. So everybody be playing on who knows what. So, I mean, it makes sense not using controllers, just the fact of like forcing it to be a different set of skills, maybe. I don't know if skills is the right word, but different. It's different, right, than playing on a controller, playing on a touchscreen. I would think it's harder. I mean, I really don't play video games, especially on phones. I did get back into Factorio a few days ago, but other than that, I obviously don't play. So I don't know what the actual, like how much harder it is. I would think it's a lot harder because like the touchscreen's not as accurate as a joystick and stuff, I would think. So like you trying to drive around or like aim and stuff using your touchscreen, I wouldn't think it'd be quite as accurate. So it'd probably be a lot more difficult to do a lot of things competitively, at least. I mean, casual gaming, like you're sitting on a bus or a subway or driving across the country, like who cares if if you're like, oh, I went over and I got to come back now or whatever, right? You go too far when you're aiming at somebody. But I think competitive, it adds a whole different spin to things. It's because the touchscreens aren't super accurate. I mean, current touchscreens are pretty accurate, but I would think that
your thumb, like,
yeah,
I have fat fingers, so
you could probably get used to it, like rolling your thumb around, like if for super fine or like adjustments and stuff. But like I would still think the touchscreen wouldn't be accurate enough to do that. But I mean, I don't know. Like I say, I mean, if you play on like a brand new iPhone or something, like maybe it's fine. Maybe it's accurate enough and doesn't have any esoteric stuff that happens, and so it's fine. But yeah, I would think that touchscreen would be a lot harder than a joystick, traditional joystick. And you don't get the tactile, like the tactile feedback or whatever. It's not a haptic tactile. I don't know if that's the right term, but whatever the feedback is from the joystick, you have the spring inside where you can kind of feel and move back and forth. Like you get that tactile feedback of knowing, and you know where to stop. You get the feedback on a touchscreen. If you're going around, I mean, you don't know where the end of anything goes. You don't know. There's no sense of start and end on anything. It's like moving. Like you got to keep track of your own movements, right? If you're not paying attention to where your thumbs are at, you got to keep track of how much have I moved my thumb, type thing. Like it's a lot more to think about, I would think. So anyway, it's interesting because, like I said, joystick, you could just flip it all the way over to one side or over the other side and kind of go in between. Like you kind of have an idea of where stuff's at, but you don't get that on a phone. So, like I said, I don't know if skills are the right term, but definitely a different, maybe the skills, maybe a different set of skills to play on a touchscreen versus to play on a controller.
Playing PUBG Mobile, that's really the only mobile game that I've really played that's a shooter. I play like Clash Royale and stuff. Like, I guess they're technically esports, but anyways, the skill gap is very large because your casual gamers are going to be very bad. And not that I'm like some great PUBG Mobile player, but it just seemed very easy. But anyways,
One other thing to think about on mobile is the fact your internet connection is super shoddy. Like we complain about internet connections on consoles, like just your mobile connection is gonna be super shoddy. Like Wi-Fi is horrible, cell data is horrible. Like your connection is gonna be horrible. So like that's a whole other thing to consider is that your connection is horrible, and there's no way to fix it. I mean, I guess you could.
get
I
closer to the
wonder if in the
modem.
rules. No. Most Android phones, at least, you can connect to wired Ethernet over USB-C. I don't know on iPhones though, but I don't. I wonder if it's in rules if you can't use hardline Ethernet. Because if you can, then I would think you'd plug an Ethernet dongle into your device and run hardline. I just thought about that when I was talking about shoddy connections. Is that most Android phones, especially the ones that support USB Type C, will support plugging in a Ethernet USB Ethernet dongle to it, so you can get wired connection. Now, I don't know how much better it is. I'm assuming it's a whole lot better because your connection is more stable. But like, I don't know if Android is super well optimized for plugging in a wired Ethernet connection. So it could be better. I don't know. I'd have to try it. I'd have to. I mean, I'm assuming it's pretty well optimized. You get like a standard Realtek controller or something, but it may be worse. I don't know because the Wi-Fi is gonna be way more optimized because we've been doing Wi-Fi for phones for years, 12, 14, 16 years, however long Android's been out.
I don't see anything in the rules, and at least the Call of Duty rules
Yeah.
about connection.
I would. I wonder if you could do it on an iOS device. I feel like you can. Didn't they merge the iPad OS and iPhone OS?
I believe so.
I think they merged those two, right? So I'm pretty sure on the new iPads, the iPad Pros and stuff, they talk about plugging in Ethernet dongles and stuff. Because people plug them into docks. So I don't know if you could do it over Lightning, right? Because the iPad Pros have a Type C, so maybe the Lightning connection would be a problem. I don't know. I'd look it up, but if you could hardline, I would think that'd be better. You know.
Yeah, but then that gets in the way of your hands and stuff. It was
True.
always better to have Bluetooth earbuds when we played mobile PUBG because, like I said, your hands get in the way. Gary V had a interesting take about video games in general, but specifically mobile games. He talked about how he's taking his son to school, and most like it was generalized about sports in general, about how normal sports are going to go away because you have to drive somewhere or you have to go somewhere to practice. And his son, 5 days a week, at least 5 days a week, practices on the way to school playing NFL mobile. And so maybe those kids will get really good at those games, and maybe mobile esports will kick off, or explode. So maybe it's just a lot easier to practice. You get, obviously it's not an official practice, but you're still practicing like your motor skills and your hand coordination and reflexes when you're just playing, a mobile game on your way to school. So that was kind of his take about, like I said, esports taking over sports in general, but applying that to mobile makes perfect sense of why mobile could explode with these younger generations. Because
Mobile explode. Period. I mean, that's a given, right? And whatever the phone becomes here in another 5 or 6 years, I mean, we may not even have phones in the next 5 or 6 years, whatever they become, whatever the mobile experience is in 5 or 6 years, like maybe even 10. I don't know what the time frame is, but whatever that experience is, it's like games are going to pop off in that environment, just because you can play it for 20 minutes while you're driving on the subway, when you're riding on the subway, or like you're riding in the back seat of a car, like going somewhere, right? Like you can play mobile games anywhere. You're sitting at the doctor's office and you're wasting 10 minutes, right? Like sitting at the DMV and wasting 2 hours of your life, right? Like you, you can play mobile games anywhere, and so they're definitely gonna pop off. And once we really get good, I mean, I say this, we have a decent internet in most big cities in the U.S. for phones. I mean, some of them are worse than others, but like good enough to play games probably. And so, no, it's going to pop off, especially with better infrastructure. But it's just going to take time for people to kind of get used to it. But no, I mean, magazines are gone. You don't have to stare at a freaking magazine when you're in a doctor's office waiting an appointment or something. So you can sit in line at Walmart. You can hop on there, and play Clash or something for a few minutes and get caught up, right? Like play
Just
anytime,
practice.
anywhere.
And I mean, if you have like an official team, like I said, it's not an official practice, but I mean, you're still playing, you're still practicing, you're still.
Well, practice doesn't have to be an official like ceremony style thing, right? Like
I mean, yeah, like practice
sitting down
basketball,
at
you
your
just go in
console is
your
playing,
driveway.
right? And practicing. You sitting down in front of your like phone is sitting there, it's practicing. Doesn't have to be like a ceremonial act.
Yeah, I mean, I just think when like for Call of Duty, like you do scrimmages and stuff, and you try to get people that are at least close to your skill level or a little bit above, um, so that you push yourself, adapt, you get better call outs, and like those are like very very effective practices versus your playing public matches of effectiveness. That's kind of the skill difference in scrims versus just pubs, but or public matches. But I mean, that's an interesting take about how, I mean, maybe we'll be adding more and more esports as far as mobiles, and that'll, like you said, pop off.
I don't know about the sport popping off, but the actual like just playing mobile games is going to be bigger, like way bigger than console ever was.
Because everybody has a phone.
I mean, yeah.
I say everybody.
Well, no, just the convenience factor of it. Like, if you get a good interface that's enjoyable, like you're gonna play on your phone, right? I mean, maybe if you're sitting at home, like on your TV, watching your TV or whatever, like you're not gonna play on your phone. But like, see, where Nintendo could win is if they made like an adapter. They went on an iPhone 12 and put Nintendo games on it instead of the Switch, right? Like Nintendo wouldn't made all this crap around the Switch when it's basically just an iPhone 12 Max, right? Like, or whatever the big iPhone 12 is. It's basically the same size as a big iPhone 12, and all they had to do was put
controller that slides into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but put the iPhone 12 in a dock and ship Nintendo games on it, right? Like they could make bukus of money, not have to design a device, just design a controller. So like, there's stuff like that of like somebody's gonna win eventually, but I mean, yeah, no, games are gonna take off. Like I say, esports. I don't know about esports for mobile. I mean, they'll be important, but I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, if COD Mobile's adding something, but good.
Because like, yeah, you can sit there and practice and play and do a lot on your mobile device, and maybe like high school esports, it's bigger. But like actual esports, like, are you really gonna go watch somebody in a stadium play an iPhone 12?
The resolution
like up there
will be
on
horrible.
main stage jacking with an iPhone 12, right? Like that's not a thing. So like maybe high school and some of this type of stuff, and maybe, but big stuff, like, are you really gonna go watch somebody play on a cell phone?
I don't know. We said the same thing about video games, 15 years ago. Are we really going to go to a stadium and watch somebody else play video games?
Yes. No, that was easy. Like, yes. But like on a cell phone, like.
Well, I'm just saying that people thought that back then. I mean, even people think that now. You're going to watch somebody else play video games?
Yeah, but they're just, I don't know. Anyway.
Boomers.
Not be boomers. I mean, freaking millennials. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if I could see the whole phone, mobile stuff becoming huge esports. Like I said, maybe like high school and maybe some super low end stuff, but I don't know. I mean, you do have the plus of like you go anywhere and you go join a tournament, like you can just go, you show up with your phone as long as it's charged, right? You can play in a tournament. There are some of those pluses, but yeah, I don't know. Like, would you rather you're sitting in front of your console or your TV or whatever. Would you rather play on your phone versus your TV? Like, that's just a no brainer. Like, no, I'm going to play on my TV, you know? So,
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and switch us over to the Twitch DMCA crackdown. That's what people are calling it. So Twitch sent out some emails not too long ago saying that they're going to actually remove channels if they don't take care of their DMCA copyright issues. So DMCA, what does that stand for, Chance? The
Digital Millennia Copyright Act is alphabet soup government thing they passed early 2000s. I think that was a digital millennia. Like they kind of went off the fact it was like 2000-ish when they passed it. But anyway, it's just saying that, like, hey, you can't steal stuff even digitally.
Yeah, 1998 is when it was originally published.
In a Digital Millennia Copyright Act.
Yeah. But basically it protects like creators, I guess, like musical creators, and I guess maybe not even musical creators. Protects. I mean, if you make a video, right, it should protect that as well.
Yeah, I never actually read the whole thing, but it's basically just a reiteration of our copyright laws and kind of construing them, or maybe putting in better language for the digital world. They did add some extra stuff to our copyright rules, but basically it's just our copyright rules and the fact of, hey, copyright's still a thing, you still can't steal stuff. So it's basically just a reiteration of our current copyright law in America, just with the digital spin on it, maybe. Because prior to DMCA, like some stuff was kind of like gray area, or there's more gray area, more up to like the courts to like actually understand how stuff worked. I mean, a lot of DMCA stuff is still up to the courts, like understanding how stuff works, because there's like clauses in there like you could copy a CD or a DVD for your personal use because you already own the thing, but you couldn't give it away, you couldn't sell it, you couldn't transfer it, right? But like there's a clause in there about making backups of data. So as long as you're just making backups of data, then it's perfectly fine. You're not violating copyright laws. But then the second you give it away, sell it, do stuff like that, like you start violating some of that. So anyway, some of that gray area stuff where, like you're never actually going to copy a book, like that's not a thing you would do. So our copyright law wasn't super clear on some of that stuff. So that's basically where it stems from, is just adding some clarity. They, like I said, they did add some other stuff, but like basically it's just adding clarity to how copyright works whenever digital stuff's concerned.
Okay. So, like I said, they sent out this big long email to content creators, and a majority of it coming from old clips. There's an article, thesportsrush.com, talking about how people are just deleting thousands, hundreds of thousands of clips. They said Dr. Lupo deleted about 600,000 clips, Tim the Tatman 200,000 clips, and other content creators close to that, those longtime streamers. And I think a lot of the frustration from the content creator side is Twitch wasn't telling them.
Why are they frustrated?
I mean,
we need to have a conversation about why they're frustrated. They're frustrated. They should be super happy they got to play for 4 years or something without worrying about DMCA. DMCA has been a big deal on the Google side for 2014, maybe 2013, 2014 timeframe is where Google started really saying, all right, guys, you got to cool it. Which
a lot of the stuff
would have been about a year or two after Google had bought YouTube. About a year or two after Google bought YouTube, they started saying, okay, guys, come on, you got to stop doing that. And then they started really getting kind of big on it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Like, okay, sending like notices, like takedown notices, unless you're deleting videos or moving content automatically. But yeah, I mean, they shouldn't be upset. They should be happy they got to do whatever the heck they wanted to for 3 or 4 years or however long they've been streaming to Twitch and being able to use copyrighted music, right? Because essentially you're stealing the music, right? So we have a bunch of laws in the country to prevent theft of anything that's copyrighted. And so if you play that music, that falls under theft, essentially, of you're using without their permission, which is part of what our copyright laws protect from, is saying, hey, you can't use it, whatever, without a permission. So there are caveats to that. There are things you can do, right? You can pay licensing fees, and there are some companies like they'll like bulk, like say, okay, well here, pay us $100 a month, $200 a month, and you get access to all these artists, and we've already got contracts worked out with all of them, type thing, and we distribute the licensing cost among all the artists or whatever. So you have a bunch of that, but like without paying for the music and without getting rights, because whenever you buy music or use Spotify, use Pandora, that type of stuff, you're agreeing to personal use of the music. You're not agreeing to public use of the music. Public use of the music is a whole different ball game, right? Radios have a caveat, so anything that's a radio station has a caveat, which you might be able to construe that like radio, like you could fall under some of the radio clauses, and just if you spun those to be the digital age, like your streaming and stuff, you could fall under the live production like radio clauses. But basically, outside of radio, if you're using it for public use, you got to get licensed. Everything's gonna be licensed, and so there's different rules around. Like even restaurants and stuff, like they fall under the same issue of anything that's produced and copyrighted. They have to get permission to use. So a lot of restaurants will play radio stations for the reason of they can play radio stations under the law and not have to pay the licensing fees, which is why you hear a lot of radio stations. Like even Walmart now does Walmart radio, and I don't know how long they've been doing that. But I noticed that back maybe a year ago or something, they started talking about Walmart radio, which is another way so they can deal with the licensing on the radio side, broadcast. They probably have an FM transmitter somewhere, so it becomes a radio station. They can stream it over IP and then not have to deal with the licensing per store. So anyway, so there's different things like that. But anyway, like that, they should never have been able to use it originally. So like they shouldn't be upset now that Twitch is starting to say, okay, we got to actually clean up our mess. Like you got to actually use music correctly, guys. You know.
I think their main reason why they're frustrated is because Twitch wasn't telling them which clips had copyrighted music in it. So like YouTube, I don't know how many people that listen to this are familiar with the YouTube interface, I guess, with uploading or reviewing your old videos. But each video has like, this is available for monetization. And then there's like yellow that's like, you can still keep it up, but the owner of the music doesn't allow you to keep it up. Or I mean, you can't monetize the video. And then there's like, oh, you broke this law or whatever. You have to take down your video, and you get like a strike or a warning. So like at least YouTube tells you, hey, you broke this DMCA.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing what happened was, this is just my theory, maybe. I'm guessing what happened is Twitch hasn't really cared prior, so they didn't have the infrastructure built out to tell you which video is which, but they got a court order from somebody to say, hey, you have to stop this, right? I'm sure like there was some court somewhere. You could probably find some legal document somewhere. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in Pfizer court. Like who knows? Could have been hidden court. But anyway, some court somewhere said, hey, Twitch, they have to take this crap down. And that's what Twitch said. Okay, fire the shotgun, get everybody to take all the crap down, right? Like, I'm sure it wasn't, because Twitch has always been on the side of we don't care. Like that's, as a company, they say we don't care about artists. Like that's been a thing for a while. So the fact that they're cracking down immediately and like without notice, and which means they don't have the software infrastructure there to actually detect what's copyrighted and what's not. So they're just probably by hand going through all their big people and like finding a clip and saying, okay, you have stuff that's wrong. Here's an email. Take your crap down, because we have a court order saying we have to take it down. You know.
So they do have some sort of software to detect, because if you play music like currently on a live stream, when somebody goes back to watch that live stream, it has like, if they detect that it's copyrighted music, it will like mute 15 minutes of your audio, like X amount before and X amount after.
I mean, sure. I mean, I'm sure they have some of the infrastructure there, but this like Twitch is a very complex software. Like adding the ability to go tell you a specific video is okay. Maybe they could detect it, but then linking that back and giving you a thing on the dashboard that says, "Hey, take down this video," like that takes some work. It's not just flip a switch and you get that there, right?
Oh no, I
So
wasn't suggesting that.
this is a multi-month process to get that to that little button to show, even if they do have the way to detect it right now. So like, that's my theory is that whether it's a public court case or not, there's public or private court somewhere that said take it down. You got to take your stuff down. You got to fix this. They finally cracked down and said you got to like, sorry, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah, they sent out initial emails, I think in July is what the article said. And I think they said by the end of the year, if you don't take it down, then we're going to delete your channel.
Yeah. No, they definitely. I'm betting they got a court order saying take all their stuff down. Somebody like Taylor Swift and a few of those that are really upset about the whole digital era that came back and sued them or something, and they said, okay,
Well, even artists now are upset at radio.
radio.
Yeah, because radio, they don't have to, they only pay like a very small fee, and artists don't really make any money on that.
Well, radio doesn't make money, period.
I mean, they're a dying business now, but
like radio doesn't make money, period.
Look up how much debt iHeartRadio is in right now.
I don't know why would they be upset about radio? They're fighting over pennies. Like the whole deal with radio, and it's different now, kind of. But the whole deal with radio in the past was the reason why the laws were written in a way where the radio station could basically play whatever they want. That's how people found new artists. That's how you found new music, right? You tuned into the 1 hour a day of like odds and ends, new artists and type of stuff, right? Like where the DJ had free reign to play whatever they wanted. And so you tune into that time and learn about new artists, right? That's how you discovered new artists. It was either your buddy told you about it or you heard it on the radio. So that's kind of why the laws were written in a way that gave radio a lot of freedom, is because that's part of the whole deal of, like I say, getting discovered on radio. And so that makes sense there. And you could say that it's the same thing like YouTube and Twitch streams or something like that. It's like similar things of like that's how you can get discovered. So maybe you should be somewhat have a leeway there of like being able to play stuff without violating copyright laws. But that's not how stuff's currently written.
Well, then they're also upset about, well, I sang the song, I didn't get any money, but the composer and the songwriter did.
Well, that's you signed a bad contract. That's nothing against them or you or whatever. That's just you signed a bad contract if you're not getting paid, but they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of artists, they, maybe write a couple songs for themselves, and then they'll go write songs for other people and make a ton of money for these popular artists. Because maybe they're tired of it, or I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons why they get out of the lyrical side, or not even necessarily lyrical. They get into the lyrical side, but get out of the singing. But I don't know if I'm guessing those guys are protected by DMCA as well, whether you write it or not. And because like covers, I mean, how do covers work? Like I sing a cover of a song and I do it so horribly. They probably DMCA me anyways. I don't know how those work,
so covers wouldn't fall under DMCA, would fall under prior copyright laws, as long as like you're talking about like physical in-person covers of like you're like a local band doing a cover.
Yeah, or even like I do a cover of a song and put it on YouTube.
So typically it falls under normal copyright laws, and it's kind of a gray area. So typically they won't crack down because it's usually a variation of the song. It's not the exact song. So you can kind of get into an argument. You can kind of get an argument of like they changed enough of it that it's not the same anymore, because like maybe they changed the key, or maybe they're playing on acoustic only and it's normally like a full band, like you got to have electric and all this other stuff. Like it's kind of a gray area with copyright laws doing covers. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you either way, but I know it is a gray area on how covers work. Most local bands doing covers, like nobody's ever going to come crack down on them. So like it's part of it. It's also an enforcement issue. You know, like okay, if you put it on YouTube, it is a DMCA thing potentially, but also the enforcement of it's a thing, right? Like, is anybody actually going to go come crack down on the town of 500 people where there's a local band playing in a bar that's
For
playing a
7
cover of
people.
George Strait, right? Like,
For 7 people.
yeah. So like some of that, like it's more of a, it's just a police ability problem that nobody's actually going to come crack down on it. So you can get away with it forever. But like I say, the posting on YouTube just comes down to, is it? It's probably going to come down to, did you modify it? Is it different than the original in enough of a way that it makes it different? Because that's where a lot of the copyright stuff comes into play, and plagiarism and all this stuff that's like stealing patent law. All this stuff is like, did you change enough of it to make it your own instead of theirs?
Well, yeah, like I said a little bit ago, like patent, you can change, 1 or 2 things, and it, maybe it changes the way that you use it, or it makes it better. Like that could be its own patent or its own, you don't break the patent laws for that.
Potentially, it's up to the patent examiner's discretion on whether or not it's different enough to be able to give you a new patent on it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And sounds like quite a bit of gray area between radio and just doing covers and stuff. But that's something that we kind of strive for, right? Is we don't use copyrighted music.
We don't use copyrighted music because I don't want to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
Like,
we don't want to have this issue of like, in next week or next year, like, hey, sorry, you're gonna have to take down all your videos because you used this copyrighted song.
right. I mean, there's two caveats of it, right? Like, we got somebody that would make music, and so we don't have to use copyrighted music. But there's a side of like, we're not stealing music, so like we're just not stealing music. Like that's a good thing morally. And then the not getting in trouble side of not having to deal with like, oh well, now we're gonna take this stuff down or remove the audio or that type of stuff. So like, you're being nice to people in general, and like you don't have to deal with a headache later on. So like, just words of wisdom for 2 people that are listening to this, like, don't ever post anything with copyrighted music unless you have written permission to post it with copyrighted music. And even then, like, you telling Google like, hey, I have written permission to use this, like, you're probably going to be there for 6 months to try to convince them that, hey, you actually have rights to use it. So like, just stay away from popular stuff with anything. Just like get a local person. Like, there's plenty of local people that would love to put together something for you for a couple $100, like put together something and use that.
You won't have to worry about the headache.
And you're not stealing. Like, morally, you're just being nice to people. Like, hey, you created something. Like, I'm not going to steal it.
Well, I know I guess it's pretty similar. There's YouTubers that like they take clips from popular streamers and they either edit it to like make a montage or something like that. A big one is Grumbae, Grumbae. And I think they're just a team of guys, or maybe there's just one, but basically they take clips and they make like a meme collection of all these clips. And I don't think they've been copyright. But certain clips, like if you don't change it at all, or because like even sometimes like reaction videos get taken down because like say you were watching this podcast and you thought we said something idiotic, like, and you reacted to it live or whatever, then I've heard of copywriting on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, reaction videos should usually be taken down. I think YouTube's theory is if it's less than 7 seconds, you're fine. Because you're kind of breaking it out enough where you're making your own content out of it. It's not stealing somebody's content. You're making your own content. So I think that's kind of their arbitrary line they drew is the 7-second mark of like, okay, well, you're making new content out of it because you only use 7 seconds of it. Like, I think that's their arbitrary line they're currently using. But yeah, I mean, that's the gray area of like, you have to modify the content enough to actually make it your content that you're producing in your own thing versus just stealing somebody else's stuff. So like, most reaction videos should probably be taken down just because it is stealing. It's literally you playing their video and you saying 3 words on top of it. But like,
or laughing and pausing, or
yeah, sure. But like So anyways, that's kind of where I think say YouTube draws the line is like if you break it up and like, okay, let's go and play this 7-second clip of here of like them saying this, and I'm gonna add 10 minutes of commentary, and I'm gonna play another 7-second clip and add 10 minutes of commentary. Like that's fine because like you produce the 20 minutes of commentary for the 14 seconds of things you derive from somebody else, right? Like that's fine. But like let me play 20 minutes of somebody else's video and add 30 seconds of commentary. Like that's nope. You should be kicked off. You're stealing.
Well, I mean, I don't know about Grumbe. Maybe he gets like written permission from other content creators.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does.
Permission, like that's what the law says. You need written permission.
Well, I'm saying even like, say they didn't get written permission. If I don't ever turn them in, like they probably won't get caught, right? So
YouTube actively scans, so you don't have to turn people in on YouTube. YouTube actively scans for copyrighted stuff. So I don't know. I think it's part of the processing steps when you upload a video. Like part of the processing steps that happen is to compare it against their, I don't know what all they do, like software wise to compare. But part of that step is to check for copyrighted stuff and to check for similarities to other videos. How they accomplish that, I have no idea. Some black magic box to compare to their. I mean, they have octobytes of video, probably like. So that comparison would be crazy, but I think it's part of the processing. And then over time, I think they just continually scan to try to determine whether or not it has an issue. So you can turn people in and then maybe move it higher up on the list to get scanned and checked against, but YouTube actively does it. That's something Twitch has just never like really cracked down on it. Like honestly, YouTube may be the only social media site that really cracks down a lot on it.
I mean, I've seen some Twitter stuff, but I think that's because they got turned in. I don't think that's because they were actively scanning.
Yeah. I don't know. I know Instagram may have a deal with to be able to play music, right? Because you can play music on your stories. Instagram may pay for you to be able to play music on your stories. I don't know how that works.
Maybe on the next episode. Any other things you want to talk about, Chance? Or you have something you want to clarify on DMCA or?
The clarification is don't steal stuff. Be a good human being and make your own crap. I don't know.
Yeah, like, I mean, I agree.
What it boils down to is just don't steal stuff.
I mean, it's just so much of a gray area on a lot of that stuff. But the easiest solution is just don't. I mean, there's like YouTube has libraries of, hey, this is approved music you can use.
Yeah, no, there's definitely libraries you can go search around, like something that's in the Creative Commons, or like you get a look at the license it was released under. People can give up copyright, or like they can say you can use it for non-commercial use, for commercial use. I mean, same things on pictures. I mean, anything that's online, right? Like when you post it, you should always put some sort of caveat with it. I think Flickr actually by default now puts a caveat with it. Like anytime you post anything online, there should be a caveat of like you can use this, or like, hey, you can use this, anybody can use this type thing. Especially if you want people to use it, if like you're posting pictures and stuff, you're like, hey, please use these, like put the caveats there so you don't have to worry about it later on, like, hey, this is not copyrighted, like feel free. Or like, hey, you can use it, but if you do use it commercially, like I need paid for it, like that type of stuff, because there's somebody else's time and effort that went into creating it, right? Like just be a nice human being,
I think that's a good place to end it off. This has been Click Gaming. Thank you, Chance. And I'm Evan. Check out our Battlefy and our social medias. Look just right below us. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, guys.